Night that I fought for you over again, don't make me change my mind. How about them apples, Diego Lopes? Alexander Volkanovski, I believe, just cemented himself as the number 2 greatest fighter of all time, right behind Islam Makhachev. And what I can't stand about when I tweeted this out and when I started talking about this, people are like, why? Because he beat Diego Lopes again? Yeah, because that's his fault that the UFC threw him back in there against Diego Lopes. And I've been saying this felt like a setup. This felt like the UFC was throwing Diego back in there with Volkanovski after he just KO'd John Silva to hopefully find a way to finish the job against Volk this time so they could have Diego as champion. That's the way it felt, right? And then there's the angle, well, we're in the Paramount era and the UFC's going for views and all these different things. And I get Diego Lopes is popular, but this to me just felt like there was something brewing with the idea here for the UFC. And Volkanovski goes out there and schools Diego Lopes once again. At 37 years of age, what Volkanovski is doing, this is just something we haven't seen. It's just something we haven't seen. To stay great for this long, and I do not believe that this is a prime Volkanovski whatsoever, but he is still dang good, man. His speed and power and cardio and even his durability, right? He got dropped with a short shot in the pocket from Diego Lopes. Like, Volkanovski still looks incredible, man. He looks absolutely incredible, so I'm excited to discuss the main event. And then also, Benoit Saint Denis. 4 in a row, man. 4 in a row. BSD. I love watching BSD fight. And it was looking rough. It was looking real rough early against Dan Hooker. And then my guy, get ready for some Mauricio Ruffy glaze, man, because I've been saying it for the longest time. I think Carlos Prates is the best fighting nerd, but the one fighting nerd that's got that pizzazz, got that swagger, got something unique that I just can't put my finger on it, but I'm like, that dude's special. I've been saying since he came into the UFC is Mauricio Ruffy, and my guy went out there and got a brutal knockout over Rafael Fiziev. Mauricio Ruffy is to me what Benoit Saint Denis is to Lucas Tracy. That's what I'm going to say, man. So I'm super excited. We got a lot to discuss, so let's not mess around anymore, man. Right into the main event, we got Volk versus Diego Lopes. Honestly, if it weren't for the extra grappling exchanges that we saw this time around, you could have told me that this was a rerun and I would have believed you. I would have thought that the UFC literally just said, hey, man, let's cut it off after the co-main event and just replay fight number 1, because that's exactly what this looked like. Now, I will say this. Diego Lopes' head movement looked better. His footwork looked a little bit better. But at the end of the day, what was Diego Lopes' game plan? Because I said coming into this fight, I picked Volkanovski, by the way, to win by a decision. And the reason that I picked Volk to win was because of the fact that Diego Lopes, I thought he was going to be more aggressive, right? And I know he had some moments where he got a little bit overzealous, was starting to kind of get to the pocket, start to let some of his big shots go. But it was the fact that every time Diego tries to get aggressive, that's where Volk meets fire with fire. That's what he did in the first fight, and that's what he did once again. Every time Lopes would try to close him down and start to open up, you just see Volkanovski step in with the boxing, and he just started ripping these nasty combinations. And on my live stream, I was like, hey, man, just box, Volk. Just box. Forget the leg kicks, because he kept throwing the leg kicks and was getting himself out of position when Lopes would pull out of range. Then Lopes would step back in, and that's where he would start to counter. And I'm like, Volkanovski was clearly outboxing him. This was a schooling once again by Volkanovski. It was a schooling. And I thought Diego Lopes was going to come out like a bat out of hell in this fight. I understand you can't really do that against Volk because of the greatness of Volkanovski and how great of a fighter he is, but what was Diego, like, what was his idea coming into this? Right? To me, it was like the adjustments that we should see from Lopes, right? In fight number 1, it was you were too patient and you were too reserved. Okay, it's your first five-round fight in the UFC. Then you fight another 5-rounder against John Silva. You get the spinning back elbow KO. But what people were kind of glancing over when they were picking Diego to beat Volk here, John Silva was busting Diego Lopes up on the feet. Busting him up. Right? And then Silva got overzealous, saw red, and then got knocked out with the spinning elbow, which it was a nasty highlight. But at the end of the day, Diego Lopes's defense is not particularly good. But I thought it looked a little bit better in this fight. He was moving his head a little more, right? He was kind of cutting the cage off a little bit better. He was not aggressive enough. And I know it's easier said than done when you're in there with a guy like Volk, but what did Lopes think was going to happen? You're going to get outscored. You're not going to outwork Volkanovski. You're not going to outmaneuver Volk. He's one of the greats of all time. That's why I think he's the number 2 greatest fighter of all time behind Islam Makhachev. What he has been able to do in the featherweight division, I mean, we know he's the featherweight GOAT, but all of the accolades, to me, these are just extra stones that he's adding to his resume, man. These are extra accolades that he is acquiring right now. It just feels like he's on these extra missions, right? And this was a waste of a title fight. It was a waste of a title fight. Because listen, man, I really like Diego Lopes, but this should not have happened right now. If Diego rattled off another win or two and there's really nobody else, then okay, run it back, whatever. But the UFC was building it up like we got unfinished business here. What was unfinished? Volkanovski was clearly the better fighter the first time around, and he's clearly the better fighter this time around. The only concern was Volk's a little bit older. A little bit of time has passed. Diego Lopes has more experience under his belt. He's riding the wave after knocking out Jean Silva. He's been in there with Volk before. Maybe he makes some adjustments and gets it done. Right, was attacking the lead leg a little bit. I honestly feel like outside of that little right hand when Diego was going southpaw, which I kept saying, it felt like he was trying to set up a high kick because you'd switch, you see him go southpaw, right, and it felt like he was trying to take a page out of Islam Makhachev's book, right? Throw that inside leg kick from the southpaw stance, throw it to the body, and eventually set up the high kick. But Diego's got stiff head kicks, man. Like, he doesn't whip kicks up out of nowhere, man. So I didn't see him landing that there. It felt like that was part of the strategy. But he should have been working a lot more at the lead leg of Volkanovski, trying to walk him down and just get overly aggressive and take risks. Because if you didn't, you were just going to get outscored again, which is exactly what happened in this fight. But this, to me, this is more about Alexander Volkanovski. People are going to sit here and say, Diego should have been more aggressive. The reason that Diego was struggling to be more aggressive is every single time that he tries to get overly aggressive and kind of just bum rush in the range and look to throw, he sees red, he gets all angry and gets into the pocket and starts to throw these big haymakers, Volkanovski just tags him because Volkanovski's so much faster. Right, and that's why I was like, just stop throwing kicks, Volk, because he was getting himself out of position, and that's where Diego was stepping in and starting to counter, and then that's where Volk, he started to tee off with the boxing. The jab was popping, the right hand was moving, and I love those little step-through combinations that Volkanovski was landing all night long on Diego Lopes. And don't get me wrong, the calf kicks were very important for Volkanovski. He was attacking the lead leg of Lopes, right, and we saw a little bit of grappling from Volk, which I thought we would see in the first fight, which we didn't see too much of, and then we saw more of that in this fight. Just the idea, just to get Diego thinking instead of Diego just marching you down, looking to land that big shot, give him something extra to think about. Now, I started to get worried because then we got into these grappling exchanges, right, and Diego was able to take his back a couple times, but we know that Volk, nearly impossible to submit. One of the best defensive grapplers of all time, very, very good against submissions, and look, Volkanovski, he's one of the most complete fighters ever. Like, for him to go out here and do this to Diego Lopes, because make no mistake about it, Diego Lopes, he's a super dangerous fighter. He's one of the best guys in this weight class. That is just the level that Volkanovski is at. That's the level that Volk is at. And he goes out here and schools Diego Lopes once again. And it literally, it was like a mirror matchup to the first fight. We saw Lopes moving his head a little bit more, throwing some more leg kicks. But to me, he had more success almost in the first fight than this one. On the feet, at least, right? He landed that good little, when he went southpaw, good little short, check hook in the pocket, was able to hurt Volkanovski. But outside of that, this was pretty much all Volk. Now, some of these rounds, they were a little bit closer than what people were kind of making them out to be, but I thought that this was a pretty clear 4-1 at least for Volkanovski. So, and I was like, there's no way Volk loses this fight. When we went to the scorecards, I'm like, at the very worst, Volk won 3-2, in case there's any funny business going on with the scorecards, because we saw some funny business with the scorecards. But I scored this 4-1 for Volkanovski in real time, right? I have to go back and watch it to give it, maybe a different look, but I thought it was 4-1. I thought Volk comfortably won the fight. He was outboxing him from range, out leg kicking him. Diego was throwing some good kicks as well. Volkanovski initiating some of the grappling. Volkanovski's got really good ground and pound, right? So when Diego ended up on bottom for a moment, I'm like, that's not where you want to be. But Diego's got really high-level jiu-jitsu, So I don't think that this is the last time we'll see Diego fight for the belt, but I just never understood this booking, man. I never understood it. That's why I'm like, it just feels like some funny business from the UFC here because we have Mobsar, we have Lerone Murphy, and that's the fight to make. I hope the UFC goes ahead and books that, and then the winner should fight Volkanovski next because to go out here and take out, like who I said, I think is the most dangerous featherweight, once again, back-to-back fights here, and school them. Like they're not really close. You just take them to school and clearly, decisively win those fights, man. Like that is so impressive from Volkanovski. People are like, well, why is he the number 2 fighter now? Because he beat Diego again? Dude, it's not his fault that the UFC put him back in there with Diego Lopes. Volkanovski thought he was going to be fighting Mobsar Lerone. That's even what he was saying. He was surprised that they rebooked this fight. So to me, I like the idea of Lerone Murphy versus Mobsar Evloev, right? I think that that's an amazing fight. Both of those guys are deserving of title fights, and then the winner fights Volk, right? And I swear, man, if the UFC, if they give Jean Silva the next title shot, I will lose my damn mind. I will lose my mind. And given what we're seeing recently, I know that may sound crazy. Given what we're seeing from the UFC, it just feels like anything is possible when it comes to these title fights. They're doing a lot of great matchmaking, but when it comes to the title fights, man, it just feels like some funny business is going on, some Looney Tunes type stuff. But at the end of the day, like Volkanovski, he's one of the all-time greats, man. One of the all-time greats, greatest featherweight of all time. I got him at number 2 on my GOAT list, right behind Islam Makhachev. What he is doing is it's incredible. 37 years of age, and he's not in his prime anymore. He's still fast. His footwork looked better in this fight than it did in the first one, and that is ultimately why I picked Volk, was one, because of the experience and the greatness of Volkanovski, but I expected Diego to be more aggressive, but the fact that Diego, while his footwork looked a little bit better, it's not good enough to be able to get after Alexander Volkanovski. Like if you watch when Yizha got after Volk, what did he do? He chopped away at the calf, made him a stationary target, hindered the movement, and was able to cut the cage off very, very well, because Yizha's got very good footwork, man. He's got elite boxing, right? And he's able to kind of set him up and methodically break down Volkanovski, which is what Islam did in the rematch against Volkanovski. And I know it was short notice for Volk, but the way he set him up, the beautiful head kick setup, pressured him, backed him up against the fence. Right? And Diego definitely came out and was, in moments being more aggressive, but he wasn't aggressive enough. And when he tried to get aggressive, that's when Volk would counter him, right? So people kind of miss that detail of Diego just should have been more aggressive. Well, do you ever think that it's just because every time he steps in to try to do that, Volk tags him up? So Volk outboxed him. His boxing looked clean. His footwork looked really, really good. The leg kicks from range were good. Diego was doing a pretty good job of getting out of the way, right? And Diego was landing some nice kicks to the body when he was going southpaw. So it was one of those fights where I felt Volkanovski was clearly the better fighter. We saw it the first time, and Volk makes really good adjustments, especially coming into rematches. And I expected Diego to make some adjustments as well. But of course, there was that scary thought the entire time of, man, if Diego lands and you'd see him throw these big shots, you're like, whoa, that was close. But Volkanovski, while he's not in his prime, he's still sticking and moving really well for 37 years of age, man. This guy's one of the all-time greats. Appreciate him while he's here. I would love to see him fight Lerone Murphy or Mobsar Evloev next. And I think the UFC is probably going to book those two, in a number 1 contender title elimination fight. No way should Jean Silva get the next title shot. I'm not saying they're going to do it, but it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me, given what we're seeing recently, but it should definitely be Lerone, Mobsar. Go ahead and book that fight. And the UFC needs to hype that fight up. You got 2 undefeated guys. Lerone Murphy, who's a really well-rounded guy, got very good striking. And then you got Mobsar, who's very well-rounded as well. I know he hasn't finished anybody in the UFC, but he actually was able to sting and hurt Arnold Allen. Jean Silva wasn't able to do that to Arnold Allen. So, Mobsar, he holds a win over Diego Lopes. I know it was short notice for Diego, and it was a really close fight. But these guys, man, Mobsar, that fight against Aljamain Sterling, the fight against Arnold Allen, like those were entertaining fights. And Lerone Murphy, he goes out there and starches Aaron Pico in the co-main event of UFC 319, man. Like, people were criticizing Lerone Murphy's too boring. Then he goes out there, takes a risk by fighting Aaron Pico, because if Pico would have won that fight, the UFC probably would have given him a title shot. They were hyping up Pico, man. They really, really were. And then Murphy goes out there and starches them with a nasty spinning elbow. So I love that fight. I think it's a great matchup. I think it's like a hardcore MMA fans kind of like fight nerds dream, so to speak. And the UFC should hype it up. We need Dana White to get on there and be like, Lerone Murphy versus Mobsar Evloev, undefeated fighters here. The winner of this is going to take on Alexander Volkanovski. And fans think that this is his next big challenge. Like, build it up, man. Like, I understand that, Lerone and Mobsar, they don't have these whopping personalities and these crazy followings on social media and all this, but they are good fighters. They are dang good fighters. The UFC needs to do a better job of hyping some of these guys up because they're good, man. And the people that say Mobsar hasn't been in these entertaining fights, while he's not finishing anybody, I understand that. He's been in some entertaining fights. Rewatch the Aljo fight, the grappling exchanges, that was entertaining. The Arnold Allen fight was entertaining. And what Leroma just did, that was very entertaining. So, some fun challenges ahead. I think Volkanovski sticks around for a couple more fights, man. And if he could go out there and beat Lerone and Mobsar, I mean, as of right now, from what I've seen, I do think stylistically the scariest matchup left for Volkanovski right now would maybe be John Silva because of the striking, because of his power. He does have the devastating power, but Lerone Murphy and Mobsar, they're not easy fights. I'm not saying I'm going to pick them over Volk, but they're different challenges that I think are very exciting. And again, let's value the legacy of Volkanovski here. You went ahead and pulled this shady business by throwing Diego back in there. Go ahead, reward Volk by going out there and getting the opportunity to add a Lerone Murphy / Mobsar to his resume. If not both of them, give them both a title shot. I don't know, man. Do right by Volkanovski, because I feel like the UFC's kind of been not doing right by Volk all the time. So, love the performance from Volkanovski. I figured we would see a little bit more grappling in this to try to slow it down. Got a little scary because Diego Lopes's jiu-jitsu is really, really good. But to me, levels were shown once again. This was a schooling by Alexander Volkanovski. Unbelievably impressive that he is still doing what he is doing. Like I said, my number 2 GOAT right behind Islam Makhachev. Incredible performance. It literally looked like the first fight. Just the fact that Diego was a little bit better with the head movement, not as aggressive in moments, right? Tried to get overly aggressive, then Volkanovski would tag him. It was the speed, the footwork, the movement. Volkanovski looked better, in my opinion, than he even did in the first fight. So he's still making improvements, still finding ways to take his game to the next level. Volkanovski, one of the all-time greats, one of my favorite fighters of all time. Incredible performance. And Diego Lopes will be back, man. He's still young, right? It kind of feels like, given how many fights he has in his career, I don't know how much more we're going to see Diego improve, but I don't think this is the last time he fights for the belt, right? Because he lost to one guy twice in Volkanovski. And I like Diego Lopes's chances against pretty much anybody else in this weight class. I mean, of course he had the chance to finish Volk, but Volk is a step ahead, in my opinion, of everybody else right now. So Diego, maybe him versus Yair Rodriguez next. Maybe him, I don't know what they do. But Diego Lopes, I don't think this will be the last time that he fights for the belt, man. So big fan of Diego, but obviously got to ride with the OG Volkanovski, man. I was happy that he was able to get this one done. Diego will be back. Dan Hooker, Benoit Saint Denis. I picked Benoit to win, I think by a second round sub. But either way, I said by a finish. And to me, it was just the fact that what we've seen from Dan Hooker throughout his career is he makes questionable decisions in fights, and his ground game is a problem. His ground game is a problem, at least when he has to face guys that actually have a danger factor when it comes to the grappling. And I'm taking a shot at Mateusz Gamrot, right? Because people seem to think that because Dan Hooker was able to stop the takedowns against Gamrot, was able to scramble back to his feet multiple times against Gamrot, that all of a sudden Dan Hooker is this takedown wizard. And it's like, it's different when you're fighting a guy that is basically just straight wrestling with no threat whatsoever. You could just recklessly explode back to your feet. There's no ground and pound to worry about. There's no, if I move this way, now I'm setting up a submission here, I'm going to get submitted. Like, there's none of that. There's no vicious ground and pound to fear, none of those things. And while BSD is not Arman Sarukian, he still has the skills to give Dan Hooker trouble. Now, I was very worried in the first round because, as usual, BSD striking defense is awful. It is so bad, man. And he is just sluggish and slow on the feet. The way that he moves on the feet is just, I don't know, man. It just has me scratching my head. Like, how he has not improved when it comes to the defense. And he just doesn't have any speed. Now, he's got some pop in his hands. He landed some big shots on the feet against Dan Hooker, right? He's got that nasty, kick to the body that he throws. His left hand's pretty powerful. But everything is just, you could see it coming a mile away, and it still lands. Still finds a way to land things, right? And then Dan Hooker, which was very smart, put Benoit on his heels right away and started to throw those front kicks up the middle, which those were having a serious effect on BSD. And I feel like that's also one of the reasons that BSD looked a little bit more sluggish than maybe what we're used to, because he always kind of looks sluggish on the feet. But he looked a little bit more labored to me, and I think it was those front kicks. That was a smart strategy by Dan Hooker, right? And then when BSD would kind of panic shoot, he'd pressure him, get tagged up on the feet, Benoit would level change, because that's what he always does. And Hooker would throw up that little ninja choke to try to get Benoit off of him and have to roll off. And then that would allow Hooker to get right back up and get back to space. But then he jumped, I think it was a guillotine, put himself on bottom, and then now BSD's on top, raining down ground and pound. And at the start of round 2, Dan Hooker was taking some deep breaths. And I'm like, man, that was a good first round by Dan Hooker. He might have even have won that round. I can't remember in real time how I was scoring it, but he had a really good first round. Those front kicks were adding up. I'm like, man, if he could set up a question mark kick, if he could try to time a knee on the way in, like maybe Dan Hooker could steal this thing. And then Benoit Saint Denis started to get to his throws, to his trips. Dan Hooker was chasing submissions again, adding up, ending up in bad positions. And then if you end up underneath a guy like BSD, you're going to run into some problems. So I'm just happy for BSD, man. Like, we all love Dan Hooker. He's an absolute savage. He's a fun guy to watch. But the reality is he's not the cream of the crop in this weight class anymore. He isn't. He put up a good fight here. That was a smart strategy in the beginning. But as usual, Dan Hooker will come out with a smart game plan, and then it just kind of all goes out the door. Once the chaos and the bullets start flying, the game plan kind of goes out the door, and Hooker resorts back to making questionable decisions. And that's why I couldn't trust him in this fight. And this was about BSD, because while he looked sluggish on the feet, he battled some adversity. Those front kicks were nasty, right? Hooker's got this long, rangy frame for the weight class. He's not the easiest guy to deal with on the feet. Like, people act like Dan Hooker's a scrub. Like, he's not. He's a pretty good fighter, man. He's durable. He's tough. He's going to bring it every time. And his jiu-jitsu's decent, at least. But Benoit Saint Denis, since bringing in the coaching staff, like, you've just seen, like, a huge change. You've seen a huge change. And how crazy is that? I feel like if you run the Moicano fight back, he gets that one back. Going out there, beating Ruffy, pulling that one off, pulling off the upset, that was huge. Beating Kyle Prepolek, right? That was a little weird early on in that fight, and you're like, come on, BSD. But then eventually he did dominate him and get him out of there. And then starching Benny Dariush in round number 1, and then coming out here and putting a stop to Dan Hooker in round 2, like, it's very impressive. So, I know people are saying that Benoit should fight the winner of Holloway and Oliveira, and, like, I like that matchup, but I don't think the UFC is going to do that. I wouldn't be surprised if we get BSD versus Arman next, and then the UFC says, winner could possibly get a title shot. Because it just feels like the UFC is going to keep throwing Arman in there with these guys over and over and over again to see if someone could find a way to fluke a win or something. Because as much as I like BSD, he's not beating Arman. I'm sorry, he's not beating Arman. It's just not happening. Arman Sarukian and Ilia Topuria are up here, and then the rest of the weight classes here. And I kind of put Holloway like right in the middle and Oliveira. But I kind of like a Benoit and Oliveira matchup. Maybe they do Gamrot and Saint Denis. I don't know, because Benoit, this is a big win over Dan Hooker here. So while Benoit's not, Arman, he had the skills to be able to go out here and give Dan Hooker some issues. So Benoit, man, that striking defense, it's so bad. That's why I picked Poirier to knock him out, because of how bad his striking defense is. And he almost paid the price in this fight as well. So I'd love to see Benoit improve that, but at this stage of his career, we just haven't seen any improvement in it whatsoever. And I love the coach he's working with, Nicholas Saad, who works with Nasruddin Imavov. Like, I love that camp. But the striking defense and the sluggishness on the feet of Benoit, I feel like could be a problem for him as he starts to get to the top here. I mean, like I said, I like a fight against, Oliveira or Holloway, but given what we've seen, the track record of who fights for the BMF belt, it's guys that have been a champion, been an interim champion, or have at least fought for the actual title before. So I don't know that they do the BMF fight for Benoit Saint Denis, and I don't think that he beats Oliveira or Max Holloway. So now it gets tricky, because now Benoit's basically got to fight, a top 5 guy. You're looking at Holloway, Oliveira. Maybe they do Paddy Pimblett. I kind of like that fight. I think Benoit probably beats Pimblett, but I don't know. Wouldn't be shocked if they do BSD versus Arman. I think it'd be fun, but I think Arman and Ilia are on a different level. That's the fight I really want to see, is Ilia versus Arman. I think they should do that and then give Justin Gaethje Conor McGregor. Don't give Gaethje to Ilia Topuria, man. So great performance by Benoit Saint Denis. Excited to see what's next. One of the reasons I love BSD, you heard him in the post-fight, willing to fight anybody, anytime, any place. BSD is that dude, man. Boom. That little celebration that he had after the Ruffy fight was badass. I wish we got to see it. I don't think he did it last night. I like BSD, man. Rafael Fiziev, Mauricio Ruffy. Here we go. I picked Ruffy to win this fight. Now, I'm never surprised if Mauricio Ruffy can knock somebody out, but I was a little bit surprised that he was able to KO Fiziev. Because what we've seen from Fiziev in his career is he's historically really durable. Really durable. He's got this explosive Muay Thai style striking. When you look at Fiziev, man, like, he's yoked. Fiziev is ripped, man. He's in great shape. He's explosive. He has the look of some guy that if he hits you, it's just going to be like getting hit by a truck and you're going down. But the reality is Fiziev, he doesn't have that one-hitter quitter power. And that, to me, was the difference in this fight. The reason that I picked Ruffy is, one, this was going to be a banger, which it was, right? And this was my favorite fight on the card coming in and was my favorite fight on the card. And it's because of the fact that Ruffy has the thudding power. He's got the one-shot precision, his accuracy, the whip that he gets on these shots, man, and the accuracy is crazy. Mauricio Ruffy is a sniper. And that's why I picked him, because while the output would favor Fiziev, it was going to be the damage that Mauricio was going to accumulate that would win him this fight. And eventually, I'm like, what is Ruffy doing? It felt like his game plan was to kind of sit along the octagon side in case Fiziev maybe shot for a takedown, to have the fence to be able to kind of, help you with your takedown defense. You get pushed up against the cage, you could kind of defend, do all those kinds of things. But it also felt like he was playing that rope-a-dope style along the fence to where it's like, let me let Fiziev chase after me, and then I'm going to kind of try to find my countering opportunities. Because out in the center, that's really where Fiziev can become a big problem, right? Because then he starts to get the kicks going, and Fiziev was landing some nasty calf kicks, and I'm like, oh no, here we go, because Ruffy's got that long karate, taekwondo style, right? He's moving around like a prime McGregor, and the calf kicks started to fly. Then the kicks to the body started to fly. Then Fiziev started to get the inside boxing going, and he was putting a ton of pressure on Ruffy. And then I saw Ruffy kind of moving a little gingerly on that lead leg. I'm like, oh no, man. Oh no, what do we got here? And then Mauricio Ruffy started to get his timing. He started to get the jab going. The jab started to thud. He started to bust Fiziev's face up a little bit. We started to see Fiziev starting to the output started to slow down a little bit. Then Ruffy started to try to set up the left hook. And then eventually stepped in and cracked him with a nasty right hand right down the pipe. And I've been saying it, man. Just because he lost to BSD, that turns out that that's a rough stylistic matchup for Ruffy. And I think his grappling's better than what people want to give him, but it's not ready. It's not ready for guys that are going to be able to push a pace and get after him like that with the grappling. This guy's special on the feet. I've been saying that Carlos Prates is the best fighting nerd, but the one that to me just has the it factor, something about Ruffy, something is special. The whip, the torque that he generates on these shots, man, like to go out there and finish Fiziev is crazy work. That is insane. That is insane. Right? Rafael Fiziev was in there with Justin Gaethje twice. And I know that those were head-on collisions that Gaethje won, and I picked Gaethje in both of those fights because stylistically, Gaethje in the pocket is a little bit of an issue for Fiziev. But Ruffy, to me, with the range, Bahamondes, I thought Fiziev would beat Bahamondes, and he did, and he goes out there, beats the long-rangey, guy with a crazy kickboxing background in Bahamondes, and then Ruffy comes out here and he knocks him out. So a lot of people were disrespecting the heck out of Ruffy, man. I don't know why, people are, rooting on Ruffy's downfall almost. This guy is such an entertaining fighter. He has such a slick style, man, and I love the fact that he was training over at Freestyle with Volkanovski. I think that that's going to do wonders for him. It sounds like he's going to bounce back and forth, train with the Fighting Nerds and Volkanovski and, working with Adesanya, working with Volk, that's going to do wonders for your career. The guys that have been at the top of the sport for a long time, Volk's still at the top of it, Adesanya, still around, but Ruffy's that dude, man. He is absolutely that dude. Now, what do you do with him next? I don't really know, because now that you beat Fiziev, now you've kind of arrived in the weight class. And by the way, Mauricio Ruffy brutally flatlines Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett. Those guys that just showed up at 324, Ruffy beats both of those guys that fought in that main event. So Ruffy's got a style, man. He's got that style. He's flashy. He's creative on the feet. He's very dynamic, very unpredictable. He's a sharpshooter. He's a sniper. He doesn't miss. And he's just got that power, that he's got that long, lanky kind of frame to where things are fast, and when the shots land, they have a different kind of impact on it, man. So happy Mauricio. I love Fiziev. I didn't want to see him get knocked out. That's why I was hoping kind of for a decision. But in a way, it's a good thing for Ruffy to be able to add this highlight, because Fiziev's been around for a while. Fiziev, he'll be back, man. He's still one of the best in this weight class, especially when it comes to the striking. But it's good to see a new guy on the block. There's a lot of matchups for Mauricio in this weight class. So I'll be excited to see what they do. Imagine a Mauricio Ruffy versus a Charles Oliveira or a Max Holloway or something like that. I don't know. That'd be crazy. Or even a Dan Hooker maybe. So, I don't know. Great performance by Mauricio Ruffy, man. I've been glazing this dude for a while. He's one of my favorite fighters in the UFC. So, I love his style. Absolutely love his style. Big win for Mauricio. Tuivasa, Tallison, Teixeira. I got this one wrong. I picked Tai Tuivasa to win by knockout, and he almost did. At least in round 3, was able to almost find a knockout shot. Tallison, Teixeira stinks, man. He just does. And I know he grappled in this fight. He was able to control Tuivasa on the floor. We know Tuivasa struggles with the grappling. Basically just laid on him. I know he landed some decent ground and pound, landed some decent shots on the feet. I know Tallison's still young, so he's going to learn, right? He's 2-1 in the UFC. Comes in, he's got a lot of hype, especially coming off of DWCS. Starches Justin Tafa in the debut, gets knocked out by Lewis, comes out here and, things got hairy in round 3. I was hoping for a robbery. I was hoping that they were going to give Tuivasa the W, man. But at the end of the day, I mean, Tallison definitely won the fight. He won, round 1 and 2, and I gave round 3 to Tuivasa. Nothing impressive, though, whatsoever from Teixeira. So, I don't know, man. He's got all this hype, but it was crazy that he's already in the rankings after 1 win over Tafa and a loss to Derek Lewis. So, I don't know. I thought Tuivasa looked decent. I didn't think he really looked that washed. I just feel like it was the grappling gave him a problem, and then both guys got really tired. Tuivasa started to land some big shots. The takedown early by Tallison in round 1 was huge. I don't know if that caught Ty off guard, but being able to control him for a majority of the first round and take some of the explosiveness away was a smart plan by Teixeira. But Teixeira's defense is not good, man. He was letting some good shots on Tuivasa. Offensively, Teixeira is good, but his defense is not good. It's going to get him in some trouble as he gets higher up the ranks. Quillan, Salkilld, Jamie Mullarkey. I mean, this went exactly how everyone was expecting. I mean, I thought Salkilld would get a knockout, but he was the biggest favorite, I think, on the card, right? And he did exactly what he should have done. Go out there, dominate Jamie Mullarkey. Like, Jamie Mullarkey's not a can. Like, people talk about Jamie Mullarkey like he's a complete scrub. Like, he's a little bit better than a can, right? He moves like he knows what he's doing, right? Throws some different shots at you. He's pretty well-rounded. This was a step down in competition for Salkilld. And I know that Mullarkey had to step in here because I think it was supposed to be Salkilld versus Rongju, maybe. But when you go out there and you knock out Nasrat Hakparas with one of the greatest head kick KOs we've seen, you beat Yanal Ashmouz, you beat, the legend Anshul Jubilee, right? But Yanal Ashmouz and Nasrat Hakparas are both better than Jamie Mullarkey, right? I think Nasrat beat the brakes off of Mullarkey, if I'm not mistaken, right? So this was a step back in competition. Salkilld should have went out there and got an early finish. He did in this fight, got to the grappling, was able to get some shots off on the feet as well. Salkild's really good, man. I wouldn't be surprised if they give him a back-end ranked opponent in this weight class. He's one of the hottest prospects in the UFC right now. Well-rounded, knockout power, good striking on the feet, solid boxing, good ground game, good jiu-jitsu. I like his style, man. Fun to watch. Easy win. Junior Tafa, Billy Elekana. I mean, this was dicey, man. I thought that this was one of the better versions that we saw of Junior Tafa. He landed a nasty, gnarly overhand right early, dropped Billy Elekana in the first round, hurt him bad. I don't know how Elekana survived. And he immediately dove onto a takedown. Tafa gets back to the feet. I'm like, Tafa's going to get a KO. Tafa's striking actually looked pretty good. He looked fast. He looked like the faster fighter. And he's the guy that was at heavyweight. He had the significant power advantage. Right, but at the end of the day, it was a matter of Elekana's technical on the feet, but once he could get the grappling going, if he didn't get knocked out early, which he almost did, it was the reality that he was going to be able to find the submission. And that's why I picked him by a round 2 sub, was just because his ground game is probably better than anyone Tafa has really fought, especially at light heavyweight. I know he fought Walker, and Walker's good at heavyweight with the grappling, but Billy Elekana, man, he's well-rounded. I feel like maybe he was getting a little bit overhyped after seeing this performance. But you got to remember, Tafa's going to be one of the harder hitters in this weight class. A guy coming down from the heavyweight division, and Tafa looked good. His striking looked pretty good. He looked fast. He looked sharp. This was a fun fight, man. This was fun. And again, we've seen Tafa's takedown defense look good in the first round. Started to slow down a little bit. Elekana was able to get to his back, sub him. This was a pretty easy win after dealing with the adversity. Once he was able to get him to the ground, there was a clear advantage for Elekana. That's why I picked him by round 2 sub. So great performance by Billy Elekana. Maybe we were overrating him a little bit after that one, though. Cam Rowston, Cody Brundage. I don't know what's going on with the website here, but to me, this was more about how overhyped Cam Rowston is. I didn't like the performance. I know he gets a stoppage over Cody Brundage, but this was a layup type of victory where the UFC's hoping for a Cam Rowston victory. And I know it's early in his career, so maybe he fixes some things. But what is up with these CKB guys and not having head movement? Like a lot of these CKB guys, they're tall and they got the tall man defense. They don't move their heads at all, and they have bad striking defense. Cody Brundage almost knocked out Cam Rowston. He had him in some trouble in that first round, man. And I know Rowston's offensive striking is good. He's got this tall, lanky frame, but I don't know. I wasn't that impressed. I know he got the knockout, and it's still impressive, but how do you go out there and school Petrosky and make easy work of him, and then you go out there and struggle with Brundage? I know Brundage has this weird, ability to sometimes he shows up and he just, looks like a complete can, and then the next fight he shows up and he looks athletic. It looks like actually like a UFC fighter, at least in the first round. But then after the first round, Brundage is all downhill. That's what we saw in this fight. So at the end of the day, Rowston still got the knockout, and it was still impressive in that sense, but pump the brakes on Cam Rowston. He has a lot of holes in his defense. So, I don't know. I took away from that fight more so that Rowston's defense is bad on the feet more so than him getting a knockout over Cody Brundage. But I picked Rowston by KO. I think I said second round KO as well. So got the job done, but I don't know, man. I'm worried for Rowston moving forward. I don't like his striking defense. Jacob Malkoun, Torrez Finney. Torrez Finney had Malkoun diving for the legs in round 3. Malkoun started to feel that world-class striking from Finney in round 3. Nah, man, this was one-sided domination. Torrez Finney, Jacob Malkoun's underrated. I should have picked Malkoun in this fight. I don't know what I was thinking picking Finney by decision. I just felt like he would be able to overwhelm Malkoun by just relentlessly pushing a pace. But, I mean, in hindsight, what a dumb pick because Malkoun's got solid grappling and he's clearly the better striker on the feet. More so, in my opinion, I thought it was disappointing that Malkoun didn't get a finish. He hurt Finney bad a couple times in this fight. The fact that he didn't get a finish, I thought was kind of a disgrace. I mean, I don't feel like Jacob Malkoun walks out of this fight looking great, to be honest with you. I know it was a good performance and he looked good, but this was more about how bad Finney's striking is and just about kind of how he's not going to have a long career in the UFC. Right? Malkoun should have finished this fight, in my opinion. He should have finished this fight. But he looked good. I mean, he did what he had to do. Kept Finney at the end of his shots, was busting him up with a jab, tagging him up. It was an easy victory for Jacob Malkoun. I mean, Torrez Finney, he got exposed in this fight, man. His grappling and his wrestling is solid enough. His striking is horrible. He's all over the place. Ooga booga, throwing these big, wild, winging shots. Malkoun was clearly the better fighter. Picked him apart, made it look easy. I just think it was disappointing that Malkoun didn't get a finish because he should have. Jonathan Mikhailov versus Oban Elliott. Well, Oban Elliott came out like a bat out of hell. He looked aggressive. He looked mean. He looked sharp. Was landing some big shots early. Right? It was looking like this was going to be an easy dub for Oban Elliott. And then all of a sudden, Mikhailov, who I picked to win by decision, comes out here is getting, swinging wild, loading up on everything, telegraphing all of his shots. I'm like, what is Mikhailov doing? Is the time away getting to him a little bit here? And, Oban Elliott, he's a good fighter, right? Outside of losing to Ko in his last fight, he's been really good. And he looked like the better fighter. And then Mikhailov got busted up on the feet, got to the takedowns, took him down. Oban Elliott didn't look like he was really feeling the danger of Mikhailov on his back. Then he paid the price. Mikhailov was able to lock in a submission and get him out of there. That was an impressive performance for Mikhailov with the grappling. On the feet, disaster. Disaster on the feet. Loading up on everything, telegraphing things a mile away, getting himself out of position. I don't know. I was more impressed with Oban Elliott, honestly, on the feet. He looked really sharp. It was the fact that Mikhailov's grappling, which I thought maybe he should have gotten to earlier in the fight, given how that first round played out. So Mikhailov's striking, like he's got some power, but he throws single shots one at a time and loads up on everything. So that's going to catch up to him at some point. So I picked Mikhailov to win by a decision, gets the submission here. Solid performance on the ground, but on the feet, I think it was a little bit of a disaster. Elliott looked much better on the feet. Ofli, Yizha, this was a complete robbery. This was an absolute robbery, man. Yizha won this fight. I picked Yizha to win this fight by a decision. He won. He won round 2 and 3, and I thought it was pretty clear. I thought Ofli clearly won the first round, got the knockdown, but then Yizha clearly won round 2 and 3, in my opinion. I thought that this was a brutal robbery. Some hometown favoritism, I guess, for Ofli. So, and you'd think if you're going to rob a fighter, you would rob Ofli, because Yizha, in my opinion, is definitely the more exciting fighter. So I like Ofli, but he didn't win the fight. He didn't win the fight. He had a good first round, hurt him, was pushing the pace with the wrestling. Yizha took him down a couple times in round 3 with a nice blast double. Got him down twice, I think, was tagging him up from range. He was the sharper striker, landed the more damaging shots, kept the activity going. This was a brutal robbery, man. Yizha won this fight, so I can't believe they gave this to Ofli. And the craziest thing about it was no one gave it to Yizha. I think it was 29-28 Ofli on 2 of the scorecards, and then a draw on one of the scorecards. 1, it was not a draw. 2, how did both judges see it for Ofli? It clearly was not for Ofli. I don't know what fight they were watching. Yizha clearly won. Sang-Woo Kim, Donmar Fan. I shouldn't have switched my pick. I originally picked Donmar Fan and then switched to Kim because I expected more out of Kim. Got to see some more film on him. That was a dumb decision on my end, but at the end of the day, I wasn't impressed with either guy. I thought Kim looked sloppy. Fan striking looked a little bit better. I liked his clinch work. Fan's not a finisher. His greatest accomplishment is losing to Quillan Salkilld twice. And then Sang-Woo Kim, I was disappointed in his performance as well. So my biggest takeaway from these road to the UFC fights is none of these guys are going to be good in the UFC. The only one to me that has any bit of like star potential would be Kiichiro Nakamura. Going out there, down 2 rounds. I picked him to win actually by a knockout. And he ends up throwing up that knee right up the middle late in the fight, getting that Hail Mary KO, so to speak. That was brutal by Nakamura, man. He's got some swag on the feet. Wasn't opening up enough. felt a little gun shy. Sebastian Zalay was out-voluming him, outscoring him, putting it on him. And I'm like, man, Nakamura's going to lose here. And then, boom, nasty knee up the middle. So Nakamura's got some good striking on the feet. I think he's got a little bit of potential. Not going to be a world champ, but he's got some potential to be exciting in the UFC. And then, in my opinion, in this fight, Sulan Grangbo and Lawrence Louis. Sulan Grangbo's the better fighter. Once again, Lawrence Louis, another CKB fighter with zero head movement whatsoever. He's got that big old fire hydrant for a head. It was the volume and the pressure that Lawrence put on him that won him this fight. Sulan Grangbo's the better fighter. The better fighter doesn't always win. He got tired. His gas tank let him down. He was throwing these big old shots, right? Landing the big uppercut, throwing these explosive shots on the feet. It was really just the durability and the cardio and the toughness of Louis that won him this fight. So another CKB fighter with no head movement and no striking defense. So I feel like a lot of these CKB guys are very overrated, man. So my takeaway, Sulan Grangbo might be a guy that eventually gets into the UFC. I feel like he's got some skills. I don't think Lawrence Louis is going anywhere. He's got no defense whatsoever. Sebastian Zalay, I actually thought that he looked pretty good in this fight, was winning it up until, he wasn't when he got knocked out. I think Nakamura, he could possibly do something. He's got the swag and the style. And then Kim and Fon, disaster. All these guys, to me, I don't know, wasn't impressed with the road to UFC fight. So, but let me know what you guys think down below. This is my recap for UFC 325. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts down in the comments. And if you're new, if you could sub to the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. See you next time.